In the words of the British band The Clash yesterday, many were asking whether former Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene would stay or would he go. Well, before 5 o'clock South African time this afternoon, all was revealed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Indeed, he had accepted the resignation of Nhlanhla Nene and unexpectedly appointed the first black Reserve Bank governor, that is Tito Mboweni, to the post of Finance Minister. Well, to give us his views on the recent saga and the ultimate decision to appoint Mr. Mboweni as Finance Minister, I'm joined on the line by a Dr Adrian Saville. He's the Chief Executive of Cannon Asset Managers. Thanks very much for joining us, Dr Saville. So President Ramaphosa accepted Nhlanhla Nene's resignation. I guess he had very little choice in the matter. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's great to be with you and your listeners. I guess he did have discretion. He could have kept Nhlanhla Nene on. It would have, I suppose, tainted him. It would have caused, in market language, contagion. He has drawn a very firm line, a clear line in the sand, and it has implications that I think reach well beyond this immediate circumstance of Nhlanhla Nene, and point to the prospects for others who might have been implicated or tainted in the Gupta saga.
That brings me nicely to my next question, which was really to say, what are the implications for those who are perceived to have done far worse? And how, with what sort of speed should Mr. Ramaphosa, deal with those people so that he seemed to be serious?
There was some speculation that this afternoon's announcement, and thank goodness it wasn't a midnight announcement, it at least gave us a chance to see how the market reacts in real time. But there was some speculation that there might be sort of wider cabinet ramifications. That hasn't materialized. That hasn't been the case. But, it's a very, very clear signal that he means business. But to talk about timelines and who else, I think we're quickly into the world of speculation.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So Tito Mboweni comes from the era of the three TMs, that is Thabo Mbeki, Trevor Manuel and himself, Tito Mboweni, when the country's economic growth was booming. He's also known to have a track record, obviously, and he was involved in the setting up of the new development bank, that is the BRICS Bank. What are your thoughts on his appointment?
Well, just to make perhaps a last comment on the removal or replacement of Nhlanhla Nene is, unfortunately, this sort of is another example of short tenure in Treasury, and South Africa needs to now break this pattern and disassociate itself from that aspect of the government. When it comes to Tito Mboweni, I'm almost unambiguously positive. You want to be careful about being too glowing, but you're absolutely right. He is associated with the Triple TM era, which was a glowing period of economic performance for South Africa along with other emerging markets. Unemployment numbers got into reverse. Inflation was tame. Growth was high. Per person incomes were rising. Infrastructure spend was well underway. So it really was a golden patch for South Africa. And Tito Mboweni was at the helm of the Reserve Bank over that period. And I don't think you want to lose sight of the fact that to help us get into that shape, he did two really important things in his tenure as governor of the Reserve Bank. The first was he broke South Africa's track record of double-digit inflation. For a long time, South Africa was associated with sort of teenage-type inflation numbers. And to overwork the example, if you want another way in which countries can be captured, inflation is one of the most devastating eaters of income and wealth. And he broke that double-digit inflation record and got South Africa into the business of single-digit, well-managed, low, stable inflation. The other thing that Tito Mboweni was responsible for was the rebuilding of South African Reserve Bank's foreign exchange reserves, which had been entirely eroded under the Asian and Russian crises. And that's what Tito Mboweni inherited, was a reserve bank without reserves and double-digit inflation. And what he left South Africa with was a vault of reserves and single-digit inflation. That's an exceptional track record to bring in to the Ministry of Finance.
It's great that we're talking to you because you have all of this insight. Clearly, the market liked it, the decision. The graphs that we're seeing today in terms of the Rand's performance make for great reading.
Well, the Rand liked it, the bond market liked it, and I think those are the two most important immediate barometers, going back to my earlier point that at least here was an announcement made in South African market time. So we don't have to take the cold bath in the morning to figure out what markets really thought of the event. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And what this means in terms of a strengthening Rand is it will pass through into lower inflation. In terms of lower bond yields, it means that a small amount of pressure is taken off the fiscus, which finds itself under difficult strain, quite severe strain, with absent economic growth and clear spending pressures and rising interest rates. I think this has put, at least if this afternoon can be straight-lined, it's put a brake on interest rates.
And then in terms of Mr. Mboweni delivering the budget speech, in 2 weeks' time? Obviously, he is experienced in all of that, but he won't really have had much, to do with the authoring of it. I suppose that really doesn't make much of a difference. He knows and understands what the issues are.
Absolutely, and there's also I think the recognition in your comment that Treasury is a strong institutional organ of state, and when you're delivering a budget or an interim budget, this hasn't been days or weeks in the making. This has been months and months in the making. So Tito Mboweni will be delivering work that has been in progress and underway for many, many months. And you're unlikely to see any grand pronouncements or announcements on policy shifts. It will be a reading of the financial state of the nation, the economic well-being of the country, and pointing to some things that we can expect by way of policy direction. But perhaps, the other aspect that Tito Mboweni is very well versed in is his ability to communicate clearly to markets and business, which are the real engine of employment and prosperity in the country. And I think that certainty and clarity of communication are going to be welcomed in a period of high uncertainty that has characterized South Africa over the last couple of years.
I suspect, though, that there'll be some quarters that won't appreciate his appointment because Tito Mboweni is seen, as with the other TMs, he's seen to represent neoliberalism, which is which is seen to be very laissez-faire and not caring about society at large. And people at the margins of society are then, they become even more marginalized. This is the view of, certain quarters in our society. And of course, one would hope that everyone would support an appointment like this because all hands need to be on deck for South Africa to progress. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, one of the things that President Ramaphosa has made very clear is that for South Africa to get back into the industry of high economic growth that is business building and, most importantly, job creating, is we have to reverse the investment drought. In part, that is about establishing domestic confidence, and in part, that's about establishing a foreign investor confidence. And put those two ingredients into the cocktail, South Africa could quickly restore much needed investor confidence, rebuild gross domestic fixed investment, and that will translate quickly into improved economic growth. I think it's dreamy to talk about 5 or 6% economic growth, but certainly, 2, 3, possibly even 4, and to start redressing unemployment. Now, I can't think of a better social initiative or social imperative. And if you can do that in a low or modest inflation environment, boy, far from being market friendly, that's country friendly.
Dr. Adrian Saville, thank you very much for your time. We've run out of time, even though we have a lot more to talk about. He's the Chief Executive of Cannon Asset Managers.